Hi, folks, with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation through a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about college activism and campus activism, the protests, the raging against this Nazi injustice that's everywhere, that these brave, upstanding students are fighting back. They are the resistance, fighting the Nazis. So brave, so stunning. So let's just have a look at the composition of these people. Now, I've sort of gathered a number of photographs. They had to be close up enough so I could sort of see people in the. So I gathered together a few photographs from, say, Los Angeles, New York, and Texas, or wherever there's been college activism that's made national headlines, and it's surprising how little of it is needed to make a national headline. But and the media coverage is generally very sympathetic to whatever the students are pushing, and there's obviously a tight coordination between the activism on campus, the media presence, the coverage in the mass media, including an editorial and so on, and then the leftist Democrat globalist politicians. They all seem to be working in approximate, coordinated, choreographed lockstep. So there's obviously nothing organic about these protests. They're part of a wider messaging and narrative delivery system, and the colleges are just a centerpiece, or very much a key part of that. So now I gathered together these photographs, and once you sit down, I've gone through this before in Australia, but I was watching the college activists in a protest in Sydney. It was in downtown Sydney. I happened to be there at the time. And I just remembered some of the theatrics of some of the, the chant leaders, the bullhorn people, and clearly the organisers of the whole thing. And then sometime later, not that much later, I was in Perth, which is on the other side of Australia, 3,000 kilometres or so to the west from Sydney, and as I came out of the hotel that I was staying, it's again a downtown thing, I noticed so I remember that person. They were so clearly they're a professional corps of agitator leaders and stirrers and so on. Yet this is never mentioned in the media. They're all portrayed as students with genuine grievances. It's grassroots, and they're the resistance, and they're stunning and brave, when really there's a cadre of professional agitators and stirrers and so on, and these people are clearly being funded. The protests are being generously funded. There's no mention in the media, well, where's the money coming from to do this, and so on. So it's very disingenuous, and the media are really acting as the propaganda wing of this student activism rather than calling it out for what it is. So, choreographed nonsense. But anyway, just putting getting these photographs here, and they've got to be close up enough so I can see that, where I can get see the details of gender and age and this sort of stuff. So, of all these college protests, this is the people in attendance. Now, supposedly they're students, again outraged at some supposed evil, but that's not the case. 65% of the people are female. So now, if just looking at that for a moment, the amount of courses, college courses that are available for low IQ people, lesbian dance theory, or African American musical studies, or gay lesbian studies, gender studies, international studies, and all this sort of stuff. Now, these things have zero rigor in these courses. Everybody gets a smiley stamp, star prize, participation trophy, this sort of thing, and that's how these degrees for these courses are treated. And I've interviewed for jobs, opening up offices in America. I've interviewed people who have 2 degrees or a degree and a master's in America, and if they come from any minority group, you can dismiss almost out of hand the quality of they've been gifted the degree through affirmative action. Now, in addition to that, say studying international relations or many other courses, that the university will give credits and passes and all sorts of things like that to students who attend demonstrations. And so if you engage in social justice demonstrations and placard waving, and you do it often enough, you effectively will be gifted a degree purely on the basis of your activism. And stunning as that is, there are many students out there today, and more coming through the system, who actually haven't sort of done a day in the lecture hall or read a single book. They've just been devout placard wavers on the street, and bullhorn chanting and this sort of thing, and hey ho ho, and I've got to go, and this type of stuff, and getting their degrees on the basis of that. That seems quite astonishing, but it's actually widespread. Now, when we look at Doge, the work of Doge in the United States, and we see how much money US aid was disgorging to pay for and promote college activism around the place, then it'll give you an idea to whether they distributed that directly to a college group or via NGOs. You get some idea as to how very well funded, lavishly funded a lot of this activism is. Without the funding, there would have been almost no activism. The other thing that surprised me was the amount of college staff, like the employees at the college, not simply lecturers and so on. There's plenty of them, because there's a lot of low IQ courses now, like African American studies or something, or so a lot of these people aren't really academics. They're just social justice grifter hustlers that have been given a job at the college. So they're able. They've got plenty of time to attend demonstrations and so on, and encourage their students to do it, and to give the students or promise the students a double credit, double major or something if they'll just do a lot of placard waving. So anyway, this is I just want to give that as a sort of background, but 65% of the people attending are female, and given that there's the majority of people doing bullshit zero rigor courses are young women, a very low IQ young women as well, that are on the basis of equity and so on are being waved through into college, then it's quite understandable that these people would be overrepresented. If you look at a lot of the colleges around at the moment, then today, given again the wave throughs that low IQ people who couldn't pass an exam to save their lives, then it's roughly 2 out of 3 are female anyway. So that kind of is representative of the dilution of standards, academic standards across the colleges. Now, something that did surprise me a little bit was that 55%, these are of the many photographs where I counted the heads, 55% are either mature age students or employees of the college. They're clearly over the age of 30, unless they've led very, very full lives as children. But they're so 55% are mature age students or faculty, or maybe employees. They could be like administration employees in the college. They wouldn't necessarily have to be lecturers or something. But that surprised me. I sort of hadn't really thought about it before. So less than half the people attending these, or in the photos anyway, less than half the people attending these protests are actually students. They're paid people who are receiving a salary to do a job, and yet they're out waving placards. Imagine what would happen if there was say the Trump administration example. So, if you're on the payroll as a lecturer or a employee at the university, if you go out and attend, and we'll be watching. If you go and attend these or organise or are instrumental in these protests, then you're clearly you're not an employee. This is not what you're paid to do. So you'll be docked pay. You lose a day's pay, or alternatively, you can sign a declaration saying that you won't do any of this sort of stuff, and you're not involved, and you'll just do your job, whether it be lecturing or again as administration officer or something of that nature. So anyway, that needs to be done because the faculty and the now on top of that, I hadn't realised how many professional agitators internationally. They move around to universities all over the world, and they're a professional agitator class. I hadn't realised how many of them are professional uni students who, under the guise of being a student, are actually just full-time agitators that move around and again stir up trouble at any camp. So that there's obviously a central secretariat that says, okay, Billy Bob, we want you over at New York University, and you, Jimmy Jack, we want you down here in Washington or Los Angeles or Sydney, Australia, wherever. So they've got a central secretary. I would suggest a central secretariat, because some of these people are clearly in their 40s. Now, for the ones I've been able to identify, they've been professional uni students for like 20 years, more than 20 years, and yet they've been agitators and associated with activist NGOs all that time. So clearly they're not students. They're just activists and grifters and stirrers that are being sent around as part of a professional international agitator class. But again, 55% of the I've identified mature ages over the age of 30 and faculty, because students typically tend to be between say 18 and 22 years old, give or take. So now again, they could be doing further studies. For example, they could have come back to school to get a master's or something like that, but they'd still be under the age of 30 for that, and it's unlikely they'd be doing it full time. They'd have a job by this point, but anyway, that's another one. Now, of the protest organisers, 85% are brown black women, again, in the middle age. So they could be faculty, or they could be, doing African American lesbian studies or something. They could be faculty or administration staff. But now I did another breakdown of students that were doing soft courses, like gender studies and that sort of stuff, and the students that were doing the tougher courses like engineering, or I don't know, mathematics or physics, chemistry, the heavy stuff, the STEM type courses. Now, the proportion of students from those courses that attend activist protests and engaged in activism is very low. It's very small. But those courses, not in every university, but those courses tend to be rigorous. And again, and I see this in engineering, when I've interviewed people for engineering jobs, this is like people who've just finished their studies and they're applying for their first job in engineering, or even people that have had say 5 years in the workforce as engineers. The difference between the straight white males and the affirmative action people is it's a chasm. It's a galaxy apart. The straight white males are pretty much all capable, knowledgeable. They've worked hard. They've busted their ass. They've hit the books to get their engineering degree. But the others, the brown lesbians and any minority group, women, even white women, are just being waved through and gifted the degrees on the basis of some hysterical notion of equity. So straight white males still have to earn their degrees. It's the rest that don't. We see this even in justice, where the straight white male will be sent to prison for a longer term than the black guy that committed the much more serious crime. We see this two-tier justice, and it's been codified into law now in Britain. I mean, for goodness sakes, whoever would have imagined that could have happened? But coming back to so the majority of students and people generally, by far and away, that are engaging in this college activism are from the soft courses, the nobody fails courses. Now, a lot of the courses that are even ones that technically have rigor in them, there's certainly universities in Australia, and I've seen this, I mean, it could even be engineering here, but say in a somewhat science-based course, there'll be the tough essays with the real rigorous stuff on it, and then they'll have one there with what has been the effect of engineering. What is your opinion as to the effect of engineering on the lives of women. There'll be a ridiculous thing, or the gay, lesbian, the LGBT. To what extent has the lives of trans people been affected? And so they're given cop-out. They're given cop-out questions. But on that, as soon as they go to answer those questions, ostensibly being tested for, as soon as they go to answer, nobody fails those answers. So everybody gets a degree. So they've inserted across so many courses now in the university these soft questions where nobody fails. So they still swan around with a degree in engineering or whatever, but they wouldn't know, the difference between a bridge and a road and a tall building or a heap of rubble. So, they don't know anything about engineering. So they've just been gifted these degrees. And when they're questioned on it, or, at an interview, you ask engineering questions at an engineering job interview, for goodness sakes. Particularly the women, but the minorities are outraged by this. The women that go, well, I don't need to know anything. Any information I need, I can just look it up on the internet. So, are you asking me these complicated engineering questions because you're a patriarchy, misogynist, Nazi? Yeah, and they reach straight away for the Nazi. Just answer the fucking question. It's a job about engineering, for goodness sakes. So anyway, this is the proportion of students that do engage in the activism are these, African American studies, lesbian studies, and so on students. And one presumes they're lecturers and academic staff generally. So when you look at a college protest, what you're really looking at is nothing like it's not grassroots even in the slightest. And all the organizational structure, the emails, the texts, the access to the students, the placard printing and the sign printing, the organization of the chants and the legals and the logistics, the food, the drink, the buses to move the people around, all this is all paid for by the NGO activist class. None of it is grassroots. And if you took that away and you told staff, or students, if you start waving placards around, you're not going to get a degree. In fact, you'll be out on your ass. If you did that, this thing would end overnight. And students would actually be going to college to learn. Similarly, if you stop these soft courses, such as lesbian dance and all this sort of stuff, if you stop these soft courses where everyone gets a trophy degree, that would cut out easily 2/3 of the college kids, the kids at college. It would easily cut that out, and they'd have to go out and get jobs. Or pursue, try and do something worthwhile. And that would, again, deny the activist agitator class, all these simple-minded, low IQ people that they could radicalize. You've been with Tastus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.